And we are starting off this show tonight with some breaking news coming in. News coming in just this minute, 24 hours after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle claimed that they were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase, quote-unquote. A New York taxi driver who claims to have picked up the couple has denied having any knowledge of the incident. Now, here's where things stand at this point. This is the man we are talking about, Sukhcharan Singh. He drove the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on part of their journey. This was on Tuesday evening. We told you about this last night. Now, in interviews given to several news agencies, he has now said that although the couple did look very tense before he picked them up, but he does not agree with the couple's assessment that it was, quote-unquote, near-catastrophic. You have to listen to this.
So I was going down 67th Street, East 67. I see a guy in a suit hail me, and he goes, "Listen, are you empty?" I go, "Yes." And he goes, "Are you looking for a fare?" And I was like, "Of course." And he goes, "Pull over to the right." So I pull over to the right, and a few minutes later, I see three people hop out of a black car right into my cab, and it was Prince Harry and Meghan, and there was another woman with them as well. And then as we drive straight, and as we're going straight, garbage truck was blocking us. He was picking up trash, and all of a sudden paparazzis came out of nowhere and just started flashing, taking pictures, and and they didn't stop until the security got out and said, "Move, move, move." And then the garbage truck got out of the way, and the paparazzi were following the car. And Prince Harry and his wife and the other lady, they were nervous and they looked scared. I'm not sure it was with me, maybe prior to me, prior to me maybe.
But the driving
because their emotions were pretty high, because all of a sudden they thought there was no paparazzis. Paparazzis came out of nowhere,
And in another interview, Mr. Singh has claimed that the couple's description of the situation could be exaggerated. This was in an interview to NBC News. He also has urged people to not read too much into it. He said that New York City is the safest place to be, that there are police stations and cops on every corner. So there is technically no reason to be afraid in the city. The driver's statement, by the way, is in stark contrast to what Harry and Meghan's press secretary had claimed. Let me just quote the exact statement. "Last night, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Miss Ragland were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi. This relentless pursuit, lasting over 2 hours, resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers." So the question is, who really is speaking the truth? What's going on here? The driver who picked them up, or the couple's press secretary who is speaking the truth? And were the claims that they made really exaggerated? Was this really what critics are calling a PR stunt? And to discuss this and more, with me on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent in New York, Susan Teherani. Susan, we've been talking about this. Over the last 24 hours, a lot of statements have come about. Now, this one in particular raises a string of question marks. Were the royal couple really chased by paparazzi? Number one. And number two, why do we not know enough about what the New York police is saying at this point?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Just to quote the late Queen, Prince Harry's grandmother, her famous quote was, "Recollections may differ," and I think it's perfect in this situation. However, we have multiple witnesses who are saying that the statement by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's spokesperson, an associate, has been exaggerated. And I think anyone who lives in New York, who's even visited New York, will tell you that it is absolutely impossible to be on a 2-hour car chase in the middle of Manhattan with the fabric of the city. I mean, we're living on an island on the one hand. On the other hand, there is traffic everywhere, outdoor dining. scooters, people on the sidewalk, and for this aggressive chase to happen and miraculously no one getting hurt and no one having any footage or image of it is pretty striking. Mayor Eric Adams also expressed skepticism, but you talked about the NYPD. I want to say that we did hear from Julian Phillips. He's a deputy commissioner at the NYPD. He said that the police department did assist Meghan and Harry. He said there were numerous photographers that made the transport challenging. The Duke and Duchess of Essex arrived at their destination and there was no reported collusion, summonses, injuries, or arrests in this regard. So this is coming from the NYPD, the New York Police Department. I just want to give a caveat there that Meghan and Harry do have a Netflix documentary coming up very soon as well. And they've said that they want to discuss multiple issues from the coronation to their son's birthday. So, we'll have to see whether or not any footage of this incident emerges in their documentary.
Right, and the statement I just quoted earlier talks about two NYPD officers, it talks about pedestrians. So have we heard more from these very individuals who have been cited in that statement?
Well, the NYPD says that no one was injured. The police officers weren't injured at all. And Mayor Eric Adams noted himself that he's grateful that law enforcement wasn't injured. And he also mentioned that nothing happened to Meghan and Harry. So there have been no injuries, which is contradictory to the initial statement by the publicist and their spokesperson.
Right. Susan, for those who've not been tracking the developments very closely, if you can just piece together what we knew 24 hours ago and where things stand at this point, because the natural question is, was the couple really chased by the paparazzi? Is this a part of a PR stunt? And what about the statement that was given out by the spokesperson earlier? Like, why is it that there is a contradiction coming to the surface at this point?
Some people might say any publicity is good publicity, but that incident that the couple's spokesperson described seems like a Hollywood movie that's virtually impossible to happen in the middle of Manhattan. Even if there wasn't multiple witnesses coming out and speaking out against it less than 24 hours later, you cannot imagine a rapid car chase like that in such a crowded small island like Manhattan, where it's 13 miles long from start to finish. We're on an island. So if you want to go for 2 hours, first of all, you would have to probably circle Manhattan. And then second of all, I guess it would bear the question that why no one called 911, why there aren't any accompanying footages, and why law enforcement really didn't stop something like this. And I just want to talk about the culture of New York and the paparazzi. For the most part, they're very respectful. And I don't know how to say this politely and diplomatically, but when it comes to Meghan and Harry, Americans aren't that interested. So, yeah, a few pictures here and there will surface, but for the most part, notably in New York, the general public is very used to seeing celebrities and a lot more important individuals. They even ride the subway without being harassed. So then the question remains, what were they running away from, considering the fact that on the one hand, they're very high profile individuals. They know that they'll be photographed. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, why this dramatic statement? Like I said, quoting the Queen, recollections may differ, but then we have multiple witnesses that contradict that. And it's a little insulting to the intelligence of viewers and the people that read this statement for them to expect people to believe something like this would happen in the middle of New York.
Right. I'll just come to you to dig a little deeper into that as well. But let's just listen in once again to what this cab driver really said.
So I was going down 67th Street, East 67. I see a guy in a suit hail me, and he goes, "Listen, are you empty?" I go, "Yes." And he goes, "Are you looking for a fare?" And I was like, "Of course." And he goes, "Pull over to the right." So I pull over to the right, and few minutes later, I see 3 people hop out of a black car right into my cab, and it was Prince Harry and Meghan, and there was another woman with them as well. And then as we drive straight, and as we're going straight, garbage truck was blocking us. He was picking up trash, and all of a sudden paparazzis came out of nowhere and just started flashing, taking pictures, and and they didn't stop until the security got out and said, move, move, move. And then the garbage truck got out of the way, and the paparazzi were following the car. And Prince Harry and his wife and the other lady, they were nervous and they looked scared. I'm not sure it was with me, maybe prior to me, prior to me maybe.
But driving
because their emotions were pretty high, because all of a sudden they thought there was no paparazzis. Paparazzis came out of nowhere,
And let me, before going back across to Susan Terriani, also get in Ian Pelham-Turner, an award-winning royal photographer and royal commentator onto the broadcast. Thanks very much for being here. What do you make of what's unfolding at this point? 24 hours and a series of questions involving this quote-unquote near-catastrophic car chase.
Yes, good afternoon to you from London. I was just talking to my colleagues on Timeless Treasures just now about this. I think the reality for me is that don't underestimate the intensity that really paparazzi can actually really induce during a car chase. For me, the paparazzi have always been people that were the lowest form of photography. In the past, I've worked with Prince William to try and stop any paparazzi photographs of the children and the royal family when they were in Kensington appearing in British papers. In other words, cutting off the supply of money to them at the same time, because all they really are vultures. They are not real journalists. They're just vultures trying to create a situation for themselves where they might create a disaster. Now, I haven't heard all the different circumstances because there's conflicting reports today over was it an intensive car chase, was it not? I think the intensity of the car chase was reported by NYPD. But there again, they may be downplaying this because they don't want to have a series of issues with them and how they've actually created security for the family whilst they're in New York. So I don't know. But I think the reality at the moment is that when I see things like this, it does bring me straight back. I was really at the funeral in America during when Diana had her funeral. But I worked on the case for 6 months afterwards on how did this happen, what type of things were happening as well, why did it happen in that tunnel and at that particular time. So it is a very intense situation. It's a very frightening.
Let me ask you this. Should we even be invoking this comparison and drawing parallels with this incident and the one that happened with Princess Diana, given how things have unfolded over the last 24 hours and given the latest developments and going by the contradictions that have surfaced?
I think you cannot take a situation like this too lightly. It's as simple as that. Because the reality is that if for one moment right now this is downplayed, then the paparazzi will try harder and harder and harder to actually create a situation for themselves, because that's how they make their money. They only make their money when there's dramatic situations happening as well. And because the Harry and Meghan have kept a very low profile whilst they're in America, at times. Yes, they come out at times, but when they're at home, they keep a very low profile as well, unless they are releasing some of their own photographs, very similar to William and Kate in Britain. I think the reality is that the price on their head, and that's how it looks to me, the price on their head is going up and up and up. So for me, as I say, I've been a photographer in my time. I have really vilified paparazzi in all its forms because they are, as I say, the vultures of my very well professed profession in the past as well. And I think the reality nowadays is that don't take this too lightly, because this could turn into another catastrophe if they're not careful.
Well, there are still a series of questions that remain unanswered. Was the couple really chased by paparazzi? And what really went down? The statement that's now coming from the cab driver, adding to those layers of questions as well. Ian, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much. Susan Teherani, thank you very much also for getting us those updates from on the ground. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.